Hello, everyone, and welcome to Matt's Madness CBB Reviews new college basketball debate show, where we pit contributors against each other in the hottest topics in NCAA basketball. I'm Madi Travisano. I will be your host and moderator for this debate show, and today I am joined by Matt Mlodzinski and Matt Waldman. We're going to get right into it, but first, how are you guys doing today?
Doing well. Excited for this.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Looking forward to taking Matt down here.
All right, with that being said, let's get right into our first topic. So last season, the Gonzaga Bulldogs went unblemished all the way until the national championship game, losing to Baylor. This season, plenty of teams enter with enough talent to go loss less well into the end of the season. But guys, who do you think has the best chance of going undefeated this season? Matt Mlodzinski, let's start with you.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's got to be Gonzaga again. You see a team that's in the West Coast Conference, a team that, while they have a difficult non-conference schedule, once it gets into the conference play, I don't see them losing any games again this season. They bring in another great recruiting class. They have guys coming back. Drew Timmy's going to be up there for the Player of the Year, National Player of the Year, not just in his conference. So to me, you see a Gonzaga team, and I know Mark Few, he's dealing with a lot right now, so you don't know how that's going to affect this Gonzaga team to start off the season. But I think going into the season, as long as they can rattle off some of those tough wins in the early slate, this is a Gonzaga team that's going to have a chance to win a ton of games. And when you have a chance to win a ton of games, that means that you're going to have one of the better chances to ride it all the way into March. And we saw last year, I mean, they fell short to Baylor, but this Gonzaga team had 31 straight wins to that point. So to me, it's a no-brainer. I'm going with the Bulldogs.
So I feel like you kind of took the easy way there, Matt. I'm going to be honest with you. And maybe that's the way it should be. I don't know. So I decided to avoid the easy route here. And I don't know if you want to say this out on a limb, but I went Houston. And maybe that's a surprise pick because people are all of a sudden on the Memphis train with all the high recruits that they've gotten recently. But the Cougars always find a way to be one of the best in the country under Kelvin Sampson. That's something that they do well there. They're favored in all but two games on KenPom, and that's at Alabama and at Memphis. And I'm not on the Memphis train, so I think that Houston's still the better team. They're the proven team. And so, they don't lose a rare game like East Carolina like they did last year. That's just not something they do very often. So I can't see them tripping up an AAC play to a team that they should beat. You've got Marcus Sasser as an AAC Player of the Year candidate. You've got Kyler Edwards coming in from Texas Tech. Fabian White should be healthy this year. And Taze Moore is a sneaky good addition from Cal State Bakersfield, first team Big West last year. So a lot will depend on how those faces blend together. But I just think Houston is hungry to get back to the Final Four and take that next step.
See, I just don't know if hungry is going to be enough, though, because I see a Houston team, on their schedule. And I know you'll probably get me for this as well, but that Alabama game on December 11th sticks out as a game that I'm a little bit wary about if Houston's going to come along with that win, especially with no Quentin Grimes this season. Home game against Oklahoma State, too. I mean, what do you think about that? Because I don't know if Houston gets past those teams, and we're not even in January yet.
See, but I feel like, with Oklahoma State, I think they're the better team. Yeah. Could it be a toss-up? Sure. At Alabama, I think is their toughest test. I don't disagree with you on that. But at the same time, that's the game that you get geared up for, even as a Houston, right? Because there's always those doubters. Oh, is the American better than other conferences? So that's a game that they're going to circle, right? And they're going to say, we need to go out and make a statement. I look at your Bulldogs, right? And Gonzaga, sure. They tend to step up big. Last year was a great season all the way to the national championship game. I just don't think that's sustainable, even for the best teams, right? And so I think there's somewhere along the line they're probably going to trip up. And let's be honest, we know how the talk goes. The WCC, it's a decent league, but how much does that prepare them for when they get to March, right? You get to those close games, having to take that buzzer beater against UCLA just to get to the national championship, right? So does that physicality prepare them to make a run in March? Look at what happened when they actually got to Baylor in April.
And with that, we are going to move into our next topic. Topic number 2 is who is more overrated, Memphis or UCLA? Matt Waldman, you brought up both of them during your points and in your rebuttal. So fresh off a Final Four run, UCLA is ranked second to the Zags in the AP and coaches poll. Freshman heavy Memphis is also drawing a lot of hype, ranked 12th by the AP voters and 16th by the coaches. Both teams have some doubters, but again, who is more overrated? Matt Waldman, we'll start with you this time.
So stop me if you've heard this before. Penny Hardaway lands top recruits, and Memphis is finally back, right? We've been hearing it for the last couple of seasons. James Wiseman was supposed to be that guy. Played a game, and then he has the NCAA thing going on. Musa Cisse, it was there recently. Boogie Ellis is gone. DJ Jeffries transferred. All these guys that were supposed to come in and make Memphis the next thing, and then they're gone somewhere else, right? One season of Precious Achua, he played well, right? But it still wasn't enough to make Memphis be that team that everyone's been expecting, right? You have that dream of 2008 national title run or national final run. Hardaway just hasn't turned talent into winning, at least not the way that Memphis expects to. So why should I believe that this year is any different? Even with Emily Bates, Jalen Durham, okay, I'll believe it when I see it, but I can't jump on a train that says this team's Final Four right away when we have this unproven coach, in my opinion, who can't take the talent and turn it into something big.
See, but I just feel like that's unfair because, here's a Memphis team where Penny Hardaway had James Wiseman, but wasn't able to utilize him that year. So I don't know if we can say that Hardaway is unproven because we don't really know what he can do with all that talent. And last year with the COVID mess, I don't think anyone should be held accountable for anything that happened there. When I look at UCLA, Matt, I see a team that, okay, they beat Michigan State. They had that first 4 game, which allows you to get on a little bit more of a run because you're fresh off the conference tournament, and they were able to take down the Spartans. Then they go and play BYU. Abilene Christian was a team that upset Texas back in the first round. So, UCLA goes and gets this kind of easy road to the Sweet 16. And then you know what? That Alabama game, it took overtime. Michigan 51-49. That scares me a little bit, the fact that it was such a low scoring game. And now I guess you could say the other point there, they'll be able to play some defense as well. And then they lose to Gonzaga. I just see a UCLA team that got hot last season. And I don't necessarily know if that's enough for me to say, oh, they're top 5 right now. I don't know if UCLA is going to be bad necessarily. I think the Bruins are a good team, but I don't know if I'd have them in the top 5 right now.
See, and you can make that point, but then UCLA was really in the thick of the Pac-12 title race until a little bit of a shakedown at the end of the season. So, and all right, Pac-12, well, they were the best team in the NCAA or best conference in the NCAA tournament, right? They had the most teams reach the later rounds. And so you have this Pac-12 that looks like it's resurging. So it's going to be tough, but the same 5 is back to start, right? You got those starting 5 back at UCLA. Those guys have that experience now in the tournament. They see what it takes. Sure. Was their path to the second weekend a little easier? Probably, but you still had to beat Alabama. You still had to beat Michigan, and they had to, lose at a buzzer beater just to not make the national title game. And so you have this group that knows what it takes, knows how to get there, and they have a coach that also knows how to build winners.
So with that, what do you think is Memphis's ceiling then, and what do you think is UCLA's ceiling? Because I think Memphis's ceiling is higher.
I think Memphis can be a Final Four team, and yes, it has to do with the 2 players that they're bringing in. I'm just not sure. You can make the Wiseman argument all you want, but he's not the only high-level recruit that Penny Hardaway has brought there and failed to turn into a winner. So can those guys take them? Absolutely. And we've seen the freshmen work occasionally. Duke for 1 year, Kentucky for 1 year, but it's a formula that hasn't turned into many national titles across the national landscape. UCLA, Sweet 16 maybe, but I don't know if they're a Final Four team either. I don't have high stock in either. I just think Memphis is a little more overrated.
I just feel like Memphis is a team that, to me, is on the short list of NCAA championship teams. UCLA, to me, is a team that right now is a safe pick early on. But I don't think UCLA is going to get there in March. I think a lot of teams are going to pass them. That's my opinion on UCLA right now.
And with that, we're going to wrap up that second topic. I hope UCLA makes it. I hope they go far. Hometown team. I hope they do something with all their seniors coming back. That's my 2 cents into that one. And our third topic and our last topic for tonight, which mid-major has the best chance at reaching the Final Four? Mid-major, college basketball is never to be overlooked. And at the beginning of the season, there are some surefire teams from those lesser conferences, not counting Gonzaga or the American Athletic Conference. Is there a mid-major team that can reach the Final Four? Mlodzinski, we'll start with you again.
Yeah, and thanks for specifying Mlodzinski, because now we don't use first names apparently with Matt with 2 T's over here. I think I'll win that debate. My first name's better. I'm going on a whim here with Colorado State because right now, and I hate to pick mid-major teams, So I don't know who came up with these questions either. But I hate to pick the mid-major teams.
It's obviously the mid-major guy over here.
Nah, I mean, it's good to look at, but I look at a Colorado State team that many people are picking to win the Mountain West Conference. They have Isaiah Stevens. They have David Roddy, a versatile 6'5", 250-pound beast that could literally guard multiple positions. He can go down low. He's going to be able to shoot the ball a little bit, and he gets all these rebounds for this Rams team. I think 1 through 5, Colorado State is going to be able to guard a ton of different teams. They've got a 6'10" kid down low who's 240 pounds. So he's pretty beefy and going to be able to guard some of the power conference opponents they might face in March. The biggest selling point for me about this Colorado State team is the fact that they're in a Mountain West Conference that might end up sending, I'd say, 2 teams to the NCAA tournament. But contrary to other mid-major conferences, I think they could end up with a better seed. I think if Colorado State only loses 4, 5, 6 games on their schedule, they have a real good chance of being a 4 or 5 seed come March, which obviously is easier because mid-major teams don't normally have that same path to get to the Final Four. So for me, Colorado State's a team that's going to win a lot of games. I don't think either of us can argue that. This team's probably going to be up near 24, 25 wins. If they can sneak in those extra few wins, get to 26, 27, 28 wins even, I think you're going to see Colorado State getting a real respectable seed, and they might be able to ride that to the Final Four. Are they one of my Final Four sleepers? No, but if you're looking at mid-majors, they've got to be there.
So interesting pick there with the Rams. While I do think they got the most votes of any Mountain West team for the AP preseason poll, they're way down in the Ken Palm rating. They're behind San Diego State. They're behind Nevada. So it depends on how you want to look at them. I went the Atlantic 10. I went St. Bonaventure, the Bonnies. Very disappointing out in the NCAA tournament last year. I think a lot of people were higher on them to get by LSU, but they have all 5 starters back. To me, they're the best mid-major coming into the season that's not named Gonzaga. Osun Osuni, down low as a beast. He's going to block shots at will. Kyle Lofton, Jaron Holmes. You have 3 starters who could potentially be player of the year candidates in that league. So much veteran experience in that group, especially in the backcourt, and that's extremely valuable in March. And then, could be a 6 or a 7, maybe even an 8. So potentially high ceiling, depending on how they play. Even if they were 8 or 9, I'm getting Loyola Chicago over Illinois vibes, right? If they catch the right 1 seed, maybe they can pull off an upset and make a run. The biggest thing they're going to have to establish what kind of bench is going to be behind those guys, but you get opportunities against UConn and Virginia Tech in the non-conference to build a profile. And the Atlantic 10 is no slouch either, just like the Mountain West, right? Richmond's going to be up there. Dayton's going to be back. St. Louis is still going to be tough. So you have some teams up there. They're going to push them, make them battle tested. And I think it's a league that can get 2 to 3 teams in themselves.
I think for the Bonnies, I think 1 through 5, I'll admit, I think they're better than Colorado State. I'll put that out there right now. But I think when you move to the bench, and whether it's, Coulibaly, the transfer from Pitt, or if Coach Schmidt decides to move Attaway to the bench in favor of a bigger starting lineup, after that 6th man, here's what the Bonnies are looking at. They're looking at a transfer from Wake Forest who only played 9 games last season and averaged 2 points per game. And then they got the 8 and the 9 men off the bench, guys that did not play Division I basketball last season. And I know there might be some other freshmen that maybe could potentially, scoop up and get into that that first 7, first 8 group. I just don't know where the Bonnies are going to go from there. I think once you reach the NCAA tournament, you've got to have a little bit stronger of depth coming off the bench. And I think Colorado State wins that category.
They may win that category, but I think Mark Schmidt's a much better coach, and he gets those guys ready to play. And that's why you play 30 to 31 games before you reach March, because you figure out what that rotation is going to be like. I look at the Rams, and I think, are they even the best team in the league? Because San Diego State always reloads, right? Nevada came on strong last year behind Grant Sherfield, and I think they're a team that people are sleeping on a little bit out there. And so what happens if, maybe you split with those type of teams in the Mountain West, and then you drop to a team that maybe you shouldn't lose to? As you said, what happens to that seed ceiling, and where do you get stuck?
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I mean, I think that if you're Colorado State, maybe that's why I'm taking a little bit of a risk there, because I do see those teams. I see Boise State as another one who could potentially beat them. But I think Colorado State also has the benefit of maybe not having as much of the country's eyes on them. St. Bonaventure plays in the Northeast, where college basketball is a little bit more prevalent. And you know, a lot of people already know what the Bonnies have. So they're going to have a target on their back all season long. I think Colorado State's getting a lot of you know, love from the reporters and the media, but I don't think it's quite the same type. Obviously, in the Mountain West, teams know what they're dealing with, but I just think Colorado State has, maybe St. Bonaventure has a little bit more to prove. Colorado State's going to try to prove people who don't know yet about them, and I think it's easier to win games that way.
All right. With that, we're going to wrap up our first episode of Matt's Madness. I know this conversation has made me so excited for college basketball to begin again, and it is literally right around the corner. Again, that's all we have time for today for Matt's Madness. Join us next week and make sure to let us know what topics you want us to discuss next. Again, I'm Madi Travisano. I've been your host alongside Matt Mlodzinski and Matt Waldman. We'll see you next time.